So representation matters in that way. As a Black filmmaker, because Ryan Coogler is a Black man, he was able to direct that and put his own influences as the characters onto that film, which matters. Because not to say that a white filmmaker couldn't do it, they just don't have the same experience to be able to lend that type of credibility to a film like that. So that definitely does matter sometimes when it comes to these Black films, like you can tell if anybody on the film was Black or not based off of something they say. Some of the clothes that they wear, hairstyles that they use, things like that. There's certain things that can tip your hand to who is actually working on this production. It's based off of, there's some things that even with, because some back in the day, especially in the 90s, but they're still happening now when it comes to Black hair in films, especially with Black women. Like if they didn't know how to do their hair, they put headbands on Black women characters.
Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Receipts are evidence or proof that something has occurred. Our guests are evidence that Black excellence is alive and well. They will be sharing their receipts on how they've been able to accomplish so much in their life. I'm your host, Tony Jackson. Let's get started. Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today. Mr. Robert Butler is an award-winning director from Detroit, Michigan. He released his first short film, Color of Life, in 2015, his second short, The Lottery, in 2018, and his first feature film, Life Ain't Like the Movies, in 2021. All of his projects have won several awards from Best Feature Film, Best Short Film, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actor for Originals, and Best Actor for Original Screenplay. His films have been played in festivals that span around the globe, from Los Angeles, Italy, Australia, Spain, Toronto, and more. He's currently working on his second feature film, The Pact, starring Neo and Kim Whitley, and we have him here today. Welcome to Show Your Receipts, Robert.
Thank you, Tony. Glad to be here.
I've been definitely looking forward to this interview. I've never interviewed a filmmaker before, so this is going to be very exciting. And so let's dive right into it. Robert, they say that the income we earn is a representation of the value that we give. And so talk to me about the purpose of your filmmaking and what's the value that you're providing to your viewers.
So the thing I like to do with my films, I like telling personal stories. I like telling stories that people can connect to, that they can learn from, they can grow from, that they can, get something out of before they leave the theater. So if you leave something, like if it made you laugh, if it, touched your heart, if it reminded you of a loved one or anything like that, then I feel like I've done my job as a filmmaker, because you got something from my two movies. Seeing my film, Life Ain't Like the Movies, it deals with a young, socially awkward boy. He has a great relationship with his grandfather. One of the highest compliments I got is like, he reminds me so much of my grandfather, and I miss him so much. You helped me. It's great hearing things like that.
Absolutely. So the filmmaking process is, do you have to be a writer? How does that work? How do you become a filmmaker? Because, we see people, you're this movie maker. Did you go to journalism school? Were you writing books first? How did you become a person who makes films?
Honestly, it started when I was 4 years old. My parents put a camera in my hand, and I ran around and started filming anything and everything I could, and tried to tell a story from that. So basically, from a very young age, my parents saw my interest in movies, so they took an interest in what I took an interest in. They gave me a camera. It was the original. It was like a black and white camcorder that I would run around, film things like, my backyard, the family Christmas, things like that. And the next year, I got a color camera because technology had improved, and I continued running around. And then my parents found programs for me to get into at a young age that helped fuel that creativity, that fueled my passion as a filmmaker at a very young age. So I didn't start off as a writer. That came later, but I definitely started off with a camera in my hand.
That's amazing. And you from Detroit. Shout out to Detroit. What high school did you go to?
So I ended up going to Troy Athens High School because I had just moved back from Georgia to Michigan before my freshman year of high school. So I went to Southfield Christian first for my freshman year. Then I ended up graduating at Troy Athens High School.
That's awesome. Next question I have for you is, talk to me about a typical day. What does a typical day look like for a filmmaker? Is it you're writing, Is it, you're just getting inspired to get ideas? Are you sitting down are you soliciting potential actors and actresses? How does that whole process work? Because as a filmmaker, you're kind of like the conductor of an orchestra, right? Like you got all these different parts going on.
So it depends on if I already have a script or a story idea already. So if I'm not starting from scratch from a story idea, once we have the idea, once we have the script done, that's when we start talking about, who do we want to play the part. We start, soliciting actors, producers, composers, all the different things we call like below the line, which are people who are not in front of the camera. And then you start building a crew who can take the vision of the script on the page and put it on the screen. So it's all about the process. There's a lot of work that gets done behind the scenes that nobody really sees, from people makeup and hair, wardrobe, like the composing of the musical score, like the gaffers who do like the lighting, the key grips who help with the lights, things like that. So everybody looks good. The director of cinematography or the EP who helps orchestrates the shot so that the director can sit there and focus on actors and getting the performance they desire out of that. So it just depends on where you are in the process. It all starts with the story, all starts with an idea.
Absolutely. So I'm interested to get this question. What I would love to know who are your favorite filmmakers, and what are some of your favorite movies of all time? Because I'm a big movie buff as well. I love movies. So who do you like? Who are you inspired by?
Super easy question, because this is the reason why I wanted to be a filmmaker in the first place. At the age of 4, I saw Star Wars for the very first time. At the age of 4. So I saw A New Hope. And I said I was 4 years old. I was over at my aunt and uncle's house, and they had it on, and I just sat down and I watched the whole thing. And I told my parents, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. So Star Wars was a huge influence over me as a kid, still to this day. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, Ryan Coogler, Spike Lee, John Singleton, so many different filmmakers that I gleaned from, that learned from. Like, I watched the movies religiously to learn. So I watch movies multiple times, always try to find something new in that movie that I may have never seen before. Maybe there was a different shot that I had never noticed, or maybe the dialogue was presented in a different way than I remember. I learned. That is like what I call my studying. So how I study films, I just watch a lot of films, read a lot of screenplays. So those are filmmakers that I love to watch, because those are the type of movies that I want to make based off of my favorite filmmakers.
That's awesome. Your study is watching movies. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. The next question I have for you is, because from an outside perspective, it looks as though this filmmaking process is it looks as though it's just all creativity. And I'm sure a lot of creativity is involved with that. Talk to me about the skill sets that are required. Are you an artist? Are you an executive? Are you a manager? Are you all in one? Does it require, what's the mix of skill sets that's required to be a filmmaker?
All of the above. You're an artist. You're an executive. They call it show business for a reason. So you got to do the show and the business part. You got to know both sides of the coin. And one side is more fun than the other, but the other side helps pay for the show part. So it's a lot of things that you have to do, a lot of things you have to manage, from being an artist, making sure your creativity and your vision is realized. The part of being a manager, where you got to manage all these different departments. Like I said, from the camera department to the lighting department to the sound department to hair and makeup to wardrobe, managing that. And then you're an executive and right, because now you're the chief seller of your film. You are the film. So when people are asking when you want to get distribution, how to sell the film, you're the person who's going to have to sell it, because you know the film intimately and you know exactly how to present it to that person. So you got to sell it. So you also have to be good at sales. You have to be good. It's a lot of things you got to be good at, but it's fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And looking at your background, I see that you have a tech background. Talk to me about how the movie business has changed, how technology has influenced opportunity, has influenced networks, has influenced platforms in the last 5, 10, 15 years, and how that affects the ability to actually be a movie maker.
So making movies is a lot less expensive ordeal than it used to be, especially for an independent filmmaker, because before, some of these cameras will cost $10,000, $12,000 for these normal cameras. So it was a financial gateway that a lot of people could not get into, especially like people of color couldn't get into because of the high price ranges for some of this equipment. So over the last 5 to 10 years, those prices have come down to where you can get a nice film camera for like $3,000 with filming a movie. I don't know if you saw the movie that's called The Creator that's out with John David Washington and it was directed by Edwards. They used a camera on set that will only cost $3,000.
Right. Was that the movie where they were just in the house the whole time?
No, this is the one where it was about he was rescuing a robot child. The robot child was being hunted out by humans and other robots. And it's a good movie. It's a really good sci-fi original film, but it was shot on a $3,000 camera. Before that, you wouldn't be able to do things like that. And then now, because of the streaming platforms and the streaming wars, that I like to call them, you now have opportunity to get your film seen or put on distribution, where before it was a very lock and key situation where you had to know somebody to get your film theaters. You had to know somebody to get onto one of these type of platforms. But because so many of these platforms are looking for content and original content like that, it gives you opportunity. You didn't have stuff like 15 years ago, you didn't have TV like that, to where you have a lot of local independent filmmakers, especially from Detroit, who have their films on Tubi and people are watching them. Like you had to struggle to get your scene. Then you also have YouTube, you have Vimeo, and you have the higher end streaming platforms like, Netflix and Hulu and Peacock and everything like that. There's just so much more opportunity now because of technology, things are a lot cheaper to make. So like I said, camera is like one of the biggest things you have to buy, from camera to the lenses. That all determines how the film looks. So because things are a lot more cheaper than what they used to be, you have a lot of newer independent filmmakers out there creating for the first time. It's an exciting thing to see.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on, you talked about the idea of having more opportunity. The tagline of this podcast is, we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Talk to me about being a Black filmmaker and your thought process on the importance of Black filmmakers being able to tell stories, whether they may be specifically Black stories or just from an African-American perspective. Talk to me about the importance that you see with that, or is it important?
As you like to say, seeing is believing, and that also taglines into representation matters, and it really does. For a specific example, I remember when Black Panther came out in 2018. It's first Marvel-led Black filmmaker or Black film lead, and the excitement in the Black community that came around.
We was up in there, boy. We was up in there.
Wakanda Forever. We were doing all of that because we were so excited to see us on the screen in a positive way that we could, connect everything from Chadwick Boseman, being the lead actors. It was just such a great film on top of that. So not only did we get a great representation of us on screen, we got a film out of it. It's how many young Black men try to start training themselves as the pilot, seeing themselves as royalty, and being able to see themselves in the character. So representation matters in that way. As a Black filmmaker, because Ryan Coogler is a Black man, he was able to direct that and put his own influences as the characters onto that film, which matters. Because not to say that a white filmmaker couldn't do it, they just don't have the same experience to be able to lend that type of credibility to a film like that. So that definitely does matter sometimes when it comes to these Black films, like you can tell if anybody on the film was Black or not based off of something they say. Some of the clothes that they wear, hairstyles they use, things like that. There's certain things that can tip your hand to who is actually working on this production. Just based off of, there's some things that even with, because some back in the day, especially in the 90s, but they're still happening now when it comes to Black hair in films, especially with Black women. Like, if they didn't know how to do their hair, they put headbands on Black women characters. So go back and watch TV shows. If you see any Black woman, particularly with a headband, that was because they did not know how to do their hair. So a lot of Black women had a set their hair already done. So because if else, the hairdressers wouldn't be able to do it, or they would put like a headband on their head in order for that to look presentable on camera. So things like that especially matter because you get to see yourself in an authentic way, something that you can connect with. It definitely does matter. Representation matters. Seeing is believing. I mean, even if you remember before Barack Obama became president, you had a slew of Black presidents on TV and film, from like Morgan Freeman to David Palmer in 24 to D.B. Woodside also being the Black president. Chris Rock, head of state. You had all these representation of Black presidents for a good 10 years running up until Barack Obama became president, because people could believe it because they could see it. And once you be able to see it, you can actually envision that. You can actually envision yourself doing it as well.
Wow. So wait a minute. I never thought about it from that perspective. So you feel like the movie industry, they talk about art imitating life and life imitating art. You feel like the movie industry kind of prepared America to have a black president by seeing these images on screen.
Mm-hmm. I definitely believe it helps because it's not unfamiliar at this point, because you're like 24 was a wildly popular TV show. It was one of the most watched shows of the 2000s, and they had a lead, David Palmer. I can't remember the actor's name. He was a black president on 24. And for some people, that was the very first time they actually saw a black man as president. So then when Barack Obama started running, it wasn't something unfamiliar because they've already seen it. And it's not a wild concept to them that they, a black man can't become a president because I've never seen that before. And so it gave them permission to envision a black president would be America.
Wow. So let me piggyback on that. So obviously you highlighted the change leading up to Barack Obama. Since then, what are your thoughts? Where are we? Are we where we need to be in the movie industry and the TV industry representation-wise? Are we 10% there? Are we 90% there? Is it a long way to go? Do you see that the playing field leveled now? What are your thoughts on that?
So I wouldn't say it's level now. There have been a lot of gains within the last 10 to 15 years with the way you're able to see representation from different types of films, because they're starting to move away from just the only black films, because there used to be the myth that black films couldn't sell overseas. That was one of the main myths. I never saw black leads in films because if they wanted to get an international audience, they believed that they could not sell. Smith changed that narrative because he was he was a global superstar. So people came to see these movies all over the world. So things like that help push us forward to dispel myths that black films don't sell overseas. That helps that out, helps level the playing field a little bit, because now Hollywood sees that black films are profitable. And that's what's going to help turn things. The more black films are profitable, the more you'll see that Hollywood pivots towards that direction too, because Hollywood follows the money. So wherever the money goes, they'll put that towards that, so that way they can continue money, because they're starting to see that films with diverse cast make more money than films that are just, all white. So they're starting to see that, and they're going to start changing that. There was a report that came out, I want to say a year or two ago, that Hollywood has left $10.4 billion on the ground because they did not have diverse cast.
Wow.
So if we go back to the Black Panther in America is the third highest grossing film of all time in America. Like
I did not know that.
$700 million was made here in America alone. It made, I think, a total like $1.2 billion. But in total, it's the third highest. Only two movies above it, I believe, are Avatar and Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Other than that,
wow,
$700 million. And to make it even worse, to make it better, it came out during February, where February in Hollywood, January and February are considered dead months in Hollywood. That's where they dump films because they don't have a lot of competition. And the films that they don't think are going to perform that well, they put them in those months so that way they can have less competition. They can make money off that film. So you tend to see these films and you will not see during like the holiday season or during the summer blockbuster season, because there's a lot of competition. A lot of families go to the movies during Thanksgiving or Christmas, or during the summer, you have all these summer blockbusters. So there's a lot of competition in those months. So January, February, and sometimes March, you don't have a lot of movies coming that are like these big time movies, but Black Panther came out in February and cleaned up. Absolutely cleaned up.
That's amazing. Robert, talk to me about narrative, because I feel like, we talked about the increase of Black filmmakers and Black content. But when I was growing up, if you saw Black content, it was, Boys in the Hood. It was, it seems like a lot of our content, and I don't know if content producers felt like they put in a box, but it seems like it's very much about drug dealing, about violence, about the criminal element in the Black community. One of my motivations for creating this podcast was, as a former football player, played in the NFL for a few years, I felt like the only content that I was able to see that celebrated us was oftentimes the athletes, the rappers, the stereotypical part of what we do. Talk to me about your perspective on being a content creator, being true to yourself, while also recognizing that we do have this stigma as a Black community that, we can sing and dance and run and jump and sell drugs and, all these kind of things, but we're oftentimes put in that box. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, so going back to what we were talking about before about how like Hollywood would only fund two types of black films. Either they would fund, like the Boys in the Hood type, or they would fund slavery movies, because those were only the two things that they would see returns on when it came to the black films. So that's why they put their money towards what they knew they would get a return out of, or they would be able to win awards from. So even though they may not have been positive representation, either A, they made money from it, or B, they got acclaim from it. So either or was in their books. They would prefer to make money, but if they were also able to say, hey, this film got nominated for 12 Oscars, even though it didn't make a whole lot of money, they'll take that too, because that adds to the next project, things like that. So positive narratives in the black community, especially when it comes to TV and films, have been increasing lately. Like even from shows like Blackish and things like that, Blackish, Grownish. Then you have all these.
I love Kenya Barris.
Yeah, you have all these black superhero shows, from Black Lightning to Batwoman to hopefully they get the Blade movie right, but we'll see how that's going on. But you have all these different representation of what it's like to be black in the world. You're not just getting two different narratives. Now you're showing black people to be superheroes. They can be, astronauts. They can be doctors. They can be presidents. They can be literally anything. We're not stuck in a box anymore. And that's what these films are starting to represent, especially with all these new black filmmakers who are doing things. Like there's one black filmmaker named Matthew Cherry. He came out with an animated short called Hair Love that won an Oscar a couple years ago. Brilliant filmmaker. He also played in the NFL for a little bit. So great guy. He also believes in supporting black filmmakers and things like that. Awesome guy. But you have all these new black filmmakers coming up who are changing the narrative and pushing different narratives than what Hollywood is used to. And because these new narratives are making money and have a wider audience, it's giving us more chances to do this over and over.
Absolutely. Man, I realize, Robert, I could talk to you all day. I could keep asking you these movie questions. I love your feedback. I love your insight. Let's change gears here a little bit. I would love to talk about you personally, not just the film industry. Talk to me about your early childhood influences, your upbringing, how you became who you were, elementary, middle school, high school, college. I would love to hear about this making of a filmmaker.
To be perfectly honest, it starts with my family. I come from two wonderful parents, my mom and my dad. My mom is she's more analytical. She's very analytical. My dad is highly creative. My dad is a piano player, music teacher. He's been playing the piano since he was 3 years old. So a lot of my creativity derives from his side of the family. My grandmother, she's highly creative as well, but she's more creative when it comes to like teaching and to cooking. She's an amazing cook. I love my grandmother's cooking, which is amazing. We talk about recipes all the time. So we talk about she's highly creative as well. So it comes from my family, coming from my parents and how they nurtured me when I was a child, even seeing, showing like they took interest in what I was interested in and they pushed me in that direction. And if I wasn't interested anymore, they're like, okay, are you not interested anymore? Or is it just because it got hard? So they didn't let me give up as easily either. So it was like, it comes directly from my parents, my grandparents, my parents on my mom's side, amazing people. They nurtured my filmmaking things. Like my very first actress I ever did in a film was my grandmother. My grandmother.
Oh, wow.
So I had a cooking show. I called it Cooking Show with Grandma. That's what we call my grandmother. And we made chocolate chip cookies. She was my very first actress. So she held on to that tape for years. Saying, one day, when you put your films out, I'm going to show this to everybody. This was your first film. This was your first
Wow.
film. Yeah. So it was amazing that and then I have two brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother. I'm the middle child. My oldest brother, he's highly creative. He used to draw a lot. He used to write plays and things like that. And so he was honestly my first creative foundation. So I just wanted to be like my big brother. So I would follow him. But he did. When he took acting classes, I took acting classes. When he did plays, I did plays. When he did background acting for movies, I did it as well because I just wanted to do what my big brother did. So those, some of the earliest influences growing up were, my family. And my first feature film is, I want to say it's semi-autobiographical, but it's pretty close. A lot of things that happened in my life went into that film because a great filmmaker, John Hughes, once said, write what you know. Pull from what you know, what you experience, and that makes it a more truthful experience when you're writing on a page. So that's one of the things I derive from is my own life, my family. My family means a lot to me. I love my family dearly. And that's what, 100% of the things I do, 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 grew me up from being in, elementary, middle school, high school, throughout that whole thing was my family. What got me through it, what pushed me towards doing films and things like that. So elementary school, I lived in Georgia for the most part. I lived in Georgia from basically first grade, kindergarten, all the way to about eighth grade. So I grew up in the South. While I've been in the South, played sports. I love sports. In middle school and high school, I played football. I played baseball growing up. Played basketball. I love sports in general. So it's being a well-rounded, individual helped out a lot as well. Because from playing sports to doing music, because like I said, my dad was a music teacher, so playing an instrument growing up was a requirement. It was not not something that was a choice. You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You had to play an instrument growing up. So my instrument choice was the trumpet. I love the trumpet. I love playing it. I just love the sound of it. And so when we got the chance to pick our instrument in fourth grade, I played the trumpet because I just wanted to be a trumpet player. So we went from fourth grade all the way to high school and some in college on the trumpet. I have not touched it in years though, but I still love the sound. Like even when it comes to my music scores, I always talk to them about like we got to find some way to put some horns in the score. I don't care where it is. You got to do it because that's something growing up. I love the sound of trumpets. But just, growing up was interesting. Then when I get to high school, we moved up to Michigan because my dad's family was from Atlanta to Michigan. So we came back home. And then, I went to high school I went to high school in Michigan and then to college in Oklahoma, of all places. Because I graduated at 17. I wanted to go to USC. My parents were like, "We're not sending a 17-year-old child out to LA by himself." So they were like, "Okay, well, let's look at something else." So it was like, I ended up going to the same college as my older brother. And also Emmanuel. Emmanuel and I went to the same college as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
That's how I met him. And
now, did you want to go to USC because of the film school? Isn't that where George Lucas went?
Correct. That is correct. That's exactly where he went. That's why I wanted to go to film school, because George Lucas went there, a whole bunch of other great filmmakers. I was like, well, if I want to be a filmmaker, I should go to film school, and USC has one of the best programs in the world.
So I got a question for you. At what point in time in that development, elementary, middle school, high school, or college, at what point did you feel like, or someone tell you like, you know what, Robert, you got some talent here. Like, I think that you could really run with this filmmaking and creativity thing. Do you remember who that person was or when that was, when that moment sparked?
I would say it was in high school because we had a TV and film program in high school. And my teacher, Mr. Lucci, it was just, I made that man's life, I don't want to say a living hell, but I made it interesting for him because I was always trying to push things to the limit as much as possible. So we just got these brand new cameras, things like that. And he specifically warned me, he said, don't do anything to mess up these new cameras. And what did I do? I did exactly that. So we had to do a new video for our morning announcements. So I came up with the idea saying that, we were at a cafeteria and that we were late and we had to rush to the TV room in order to do the announcement. So it's just a video of us rushing. Very last shot, it's a guy diving for the door, catching the door before it closes. And so what we did is I put a camera on the ground and he slid all the way to the door and hit the camera. And, my teacher comes up like, "What are you doing?" I said, "But I got the shot though." He said, "What are you doing?" I got the shot though.
I got the shot.
Look at the shot. He reviewed the footage. He goes, "All right, you got the shot." I said, "Exactly." And the camera's fine. We had to do something a little bit risky to get the shot. But he was one of the, like I said, he was pushing towards film more because even when one of the film schools that, that I wanted to go to, he brought a great recommendation. They came up to meet me, things like that. So he was, Lucci, was very instrumental.
Shout out Mr. Lucci. Yeah, yes. What was I know your first project was Grandma and the cooking show with Grandma. After, were you doing kind of small projects or anything when you were in college, shooting, for classes or anything?
Yes and no. So in college, we, before YouTube was really big, a lot of me and my friends, we did a lot of skits. And so we did skits based off of our experiences. We had something called, the name of our floor, each of our floors were named something different. So our floor was Michael 7, we were called Lifeguard. So we did all these skits, and one of them was called Lifeguard Dating Service. So basically took all these stereotypes of guys at our schools, put that into a video, and it got wildly popular on campus. So we would do sketches and skits. So kind of like how you see on TikTok now, you see all these sketches, things like that. We were that back in 2007, 2008. And so we were putting them online because people on campus thought they were funny. We did things from like that. We did music as well. We were in a hip hop R&B group as well that we did back then. So we did a lot of videos and sketches just to make people laugh and, to make sure we weren't doing anything stupid to get in trouble at college. But then also there was a specialized film program at my school that I got into my junior year. And then that's when it became a little bit more focused in college about where you want to go, what you want to do with your life. And that's we did a lot of videos and programs. And so one of the classes that we had was a marketing class. We had to come up with a marketing plan for a nonprofit organization, which included how to do a fundraiser, how to do videos for fundraisers. So we had to create a video that I remember specifically. It's called the Taliban Boys. They were in West Africa, and these boys basically were, street beggars on the street, asking for money while trying to avoid child soldiers, things like that. And we raised for this organization. Their goal was $15,000 for the whole campaign. Based off of our work in that video, they made $15,000 on one night.
Wow.
So it was things that made us more target filmmakers and storytellers once my junior year hit.
Wow. Did that give you like a realization like, wow, this medium of filmmaking, how this can be very impactful, like you can use it in a positive way? Did that affect you in any kind of way when you were able to make such a big difference with your art?
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling because we weren't being rated on how much money we raised during that fundraiser. It was just based off the work that we did. But when we were able to impact, so I remember when we played the video, because I remember working on this video, it was just me and two actors working, and it was a lot of hard work and it was difficult. We had to do things on the fly because we were college students, so we didn't have a lot of money. And just, I remember watching the video and it was just like dead silent in the fundraiser. Everybody was on the edge of your seat type of silence where nobody was making sound. Could barely hear anybody breathing. And then at one point you could hear somebody crying. So it was like once I got up, I'm like, wow, this is the first time I could say something that I made impacted somebody so greatly. The fact that, like I said, the fundraiser was supposed to be $15,000 over like 3 months, and they were still one day.
Wow.
One night. In like 2 hours, they were able to raise that money. It was amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well, and I know that art is subjective and it can't necessarily be quantified or rated in a specific way. But my personal feeling is that filmmakers are the ultimate artists because you guys have everything in one: music and pictures and video and dialogue and all of these different things weaving into storytelling. Talk to me about the need to be, because it seems like you almost have to be a musician, but you also have to be a storyteller, but you also have to have an eye for pictures and arts and angles. We're back to talking about movies again. You just get me so excited. Talk to me about the intermingling of all of these different art forms all into one.
So you don't honestly have to be all those like you described, but you have to have a vision. When you have a vision, it attracts the right people. So you may not be the greatest at capturing images on the screen, but that's why you have a director of photography who can talk about their vision. They can capture that vision. You may not be the best at making music, but you have a composer who has that ear, and once you tell them their vision for the score, they can go out and make it. So it's all about having a vision. Once you have a singular vision, you can go out and find the right people and connect that vision and make the project better. So you don't necessarily have to do everything for yourself. Now, some filmmakers do because they don't have a lot of money and they have to do that out of necessity. But when you don't have to do it out of necessity, you can just connect people to your vision. And once they connect, then you can get the right people towards your project. So you don't always have to do everything yourself, which is something I'm learning.
Right. So talk to me about, being a Black filmmaker. One of the purposes of this podcast is we wanted to show visuals of African Americans doing incredible things like yourself, and also kind of dispel the myth that we can't do certain things and also support imagery, and we can do certain things. But talk to me about the unique challenges that you faced as a filmmaker, as a Black man, as a Black filmmaker, and how you've overcome those challenges, whether it may be people not believing in your vision or counting you out, or, you know, prejudging your talent or ability or your process.
So I can speak to a couple examples just from memory, especially when it came to my first feature film. We entered the script before we started shooting into like a screenplay contest. And so it made it to like the final round. Final round of judges didn't like the movie or didn't like the script because it was what they called it was atypical. They called it atypical because you saw like for the type of story we were telling, you get a lot of white stories like that, but you don't get a lot of Black stories. So it's different because it's from a different perspective, a different view. They didn't see it that way. They read it out as the characters were just white characters. So because that was their frame of mind and method, we didn't get, we didn't make it past, we didn't win the script. But before that, everybody loved the script. It was great. And then we get to the final round. I was like, we've seen this before. A lot of Black audiences have not seen those type of films because they weren't being made. So it was more like that. And also it's just more of, like there's things roadblocks you have to overcome as a Black filmmaker, especially when you want to do Black leads. So like say you're doing a romantic comedy. Most times they don't want two Black leads. They'll do like a Black male and a white woman, or a Black male and a Latino woman. Or if it's a Black woman, then it will be a white lead. They don't like doing two Black leads in those types of films because they believe that it automatically becomes a Black film and you're limiting your audience. And so there's things like that because there's the romantic comedy we're working on now. I was offered a good deal of money to sell it to a studio about 3 years ago. They wanted to make the leads white, and I would not sell it for that purpose. So I was like, no, I mean, that's cool. They tossed a little bit more cash at me. I'm like, that's good. I need to have the leads to be Black because we don't get those types of stories. We don't get rom-coms like that from Black leads like that. So I wanted to create something for that positive imagery that, Black people can be in love. Black people can do this. Black people can do that and show them that it's possible for Black people. Because Black representation matters.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of what you just said, do you make movies with ulterior motives? And here's what I mean by that. I understand that you're an artist and you have a vision and you want to bring that vision to life. But are there ever times when you're developing a character or you're coming up with an idea, you're like, nah, I don't want to portray this person in this way because then people are is perpetuating a stereotype? Or do you go in there with a blank slate, like the art and the process is going to drive me? You're not necessarily thinking about how people will perceive that, and is it reinforcing stereotypes, or what are your thoughts on that?
For me, it's all about what the story dictates. So I don't really go into a story with, I can't portray somebody like this because it looks bad on them, or can't portray somebody like that because it will do a negative. It's all about what the story dictates. If the story requires something like that and it services the story, I'll put it in there because it makes the story better. I'm always looking at what makes the story better, what makes the story clicks with an audience. If it doesn't click, then I remove certain things, but it's all about what the story requires. That's my philosophy when it comes to it. I don't tend to do things with ulterior motives, although some people may say that, but it's not how I go about my creative process. It's all about what the story needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I want to change gears. We're going to kind of roll, but let's say I'm an aspiring filmmaker and I want to kind of walk down the path that you have. First question I have is, are there any books or any kind of resources, videos, movies? What should I be listening to? What should I be reading? What should I be doing if I'm an aspiring filmmaker? If I want to also follow in your footsteps and develop the skills? Do I need to go to film school? Do I need to go to college and get the degree? What are your thoughts on that?
So I wouldn't say you need to go to film school per se, because there's a wealth of resources online that you can learn filmmaking from. There's stuff even as a filmmaker now that I go to YouTube and watch just to learn from other filmmakers. Like there's one page on YouTube in particular I like. It's called Lessons from the Screenplay. So it's basically a screenwriter breaking down certain scenes or certain themes of movies and breaking it down for you to understand. Now, they always say that there's a book that every filmmaker should read or screenplay writer should read. It's called Story by Robert McKee, which breaks down all of the writing fundamentals when it comes to screenplays. I would always say go. It's hard to say that now because of student loan debt, but going to college always needs a great foundation. But weighing student loan debts and stuff, just I'm like, yeah, it's hard to recommend going to college. But I can't say going to college did not help me. It helped me with my thought process, connect me to the right people, and help me grow to where I want to go. That's not everybody's path. And I can't just say for one thing, you need to go to film school to be a filmmaker, because there are a lot of filmmakers who did not go to film school. They learned on the job, or they learned by doing it on their own. And those are also paths that you can take. Film school does end up giving you connections to certain individuals that you may not have if you don't go to film school. So I know a couple of people who went to film school and they connected with studio executives who would never have been able to connect to because they make those connections at film school, working in for certain projects, things like that. So everybody's path is different, but what great thing about today is there's so much wealth of knowledge on YouTube, on Vimeo, on all these different websites that you can grab, that you can learn how to light a picture, to frame something properly, on how to write a compelling protagonist or a compelling villain, or how to score a film. There's so many different resources out there that you go on YouTube and find that can teach you how to be a filmmaker. And then the only other thing I was saying is watch your favorite movie critically and write down why you like that movie. If you can change something like that, what would you do to change that movie? And, then go out and try to do that. So, like I said, learning on the job experience is the greatest teacher. So learning how to do your own film, it may not be perfect, but you can learn the process. And learning the process is an important step. Once you learn the process, things start to get easier as you get more.
That's awesome, man. That's some great advice. Talk to me about, okay, I want to be a filmmaker. What are the foundational habits that I need to develop to be a filmmaker? Do I need to be a voracious reader? Do I need to watch film, watch movies all the time and digest them and break them down? Like, what are some of the things that you feel like is a commonality of success for a filmmaker, or is there no commonality of success? They just kind of all over the place.
From what for me, I am a voracious reader. I read a lot. I read as much as possible, from historical documents, books, and articles, things like that, things that interest me. I'm a huge history buff. I love reading about history, from things that I was not around to experience. So I definitely write things about that, because I like to see how we got to where we are as a people, as a nation, as a global community. So I love to read. I consume a lot of articles and books, things like that. For things that's a hard question, because there's no set path thing that you need to do. I think all filmmakers, they do watch a lot of films. One commonality I know with a lot of filmmakers, they watch a lot of films and don't just watch one genre. They watch all. They watch things from sci-fi to drama to romantic comedies to action to horror. So they watch everything to get a well-rounded picture of the filmmaking experience and as a filmmaker. So there's one thing I can say I know about all filmmakers, people that I talk to, is that we watch a lot of films. And we watch it differently than everybody else. We watch the shots, we watch the lighting, we watch the editing, we watch the pacing of the film. We listen to the score, we listen to the sound effects. I would say, like I went back to the last question, is pick your favorite movie and break it down. Why do you like it? What did you like about the characters? What did you like about the story? What did you like about the lighting, the shot selection? Did you think the movie was too slow? Do you think the movie was too fast? Did you think the movie was at the right pace? Did you the movie was too long? Did you think that the movie you could shave 20 minutes off the movie and it could still be a great movie? If so, what 20 minutes would you shave off to make this movie shorter to make it better? Or would you extend certain scenes to make things better because things weren't explained as well as they could be? So it's just, there's these things that you can do, but I think the commonality is watching films.
Absolutely. So basically almost deconstructing the film and kind of reverse engineering it in a way.
Mm-hmm. I would say so, yeah. I know a lot of filmmakers do that. Even when I talk to my director of photography on certain projects, we will say, hey, I need you to watch this film. And then I need you to look at this shot, and let's talk about it. Talk about why. So we talk in film to other filmmakers about what we're trying to do for something. So It's like we use that as examples, as almost like a board or look board for your team. Say, hey, I really like this shot at 10 minutes and 52 seconds and 24 frames here, this movie, and this is what I'm envisioning for this scene. So things like that.
Awesome. So envision you're talking to your younger self, the 18-year-old, the 17-year-old, fresh out of high school, Robert. What advice, learning what you've learned over the last, I don't know exactly how old you are. I know I'm older than you.
I turned 34 yesterday. I just turned 34 yesterday.
Man, made me feel old. 34. So over these 17 years of your life, what advice would you give the 17-year-old, starry-eyed, bushy-tailed Robert Butler, who's headed off to college, who has this dream of being this filmmaker? What advice would you give him?
Let me think about it. What advice would I give my 17-year-old self? Number one, just because you're gifted in something doesn't mean you're not going to have to work hard to achieve what you want. Just because you have talent in something, does that mean that you don't have to put the work to make yourself better? Because there are a lot of talented people out there who don't work hard and they missed out on things that they should have had. So remember, continue your talent, put the hard work will get you places that only people with talent could not get. You have a God-given gift, use it wisely, use it well, use it to help people. And, life is hard. Life does not get easier, but it can get better. And you surround yourself with the right people, it makes life that much better. But just keep going. Don't quit. You're going to have a lot of challenges and things that you never would have thought would have happened to you at that young age. But just remember, don't quit. Don't give up. Just keep pushing through. You got this.
Wow. That is awesome. Man, you dropped so many receipts today, so many nuggets. I appreciate you sharing. I'm wrapping up here, Robert. We got a few more questions. Okay. First question is success. What means success for us at this podcast is to be able to, again, show these visuals of Black excellence, but also to be able to pair the people who are living that vision with those who aspire to live that vision. And so my question to you is, are you currently mentoring anybody who also would like to become a filmmaker? And if not, are you open to doing so?
I love talking to young filmmakers. I am mentoring at least 2 young men right now in film. Talk about film a lot. I'm always open to talking to other filmmakers because I believe that is my duty to open the doors for the other filmmakers behind, keep that door open so more people can walk through that path and just make it easier for them, because somebody made it easier for me. So my goal is to make it easier for other filmmakers coming behind me to create their art without going through exactly all struggles that I went through. So that is extremely important.
That's amazing. So if someone were to reach out to us who saw this interview and they're like, man, Robert Butler, that was amazing. Love the episode. I would love to be able to ask him a few questions. Is it okay if we, direct them, give them your email?
Sure.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I would love to answer questions and help out where I could.
Awesome. So the last question I have is, where can people find you? Obviously, you're making this amazing content. Give us your socials, your website. How can people connect to what you're doing and the incredible art that you're creating?
So I believe in brand synergy. So anywhere that you see Breezy2345, that's where you should find me on socials, from Twitter to Instagram. I believe my Facebook URL is now Breezy2345. Things like that. You should be able to find me under my socials there. To find my content where it comes to films, my feature film, Life Ain't Like Movies, is on Tubi, YouTube, Amazon Prime, Roku, and a couple other places. And now my short films are on YouTube. So if you look up my short films by name and type in my name after me, you'll find my short film on YouTube and the rest of my content that we didn't talk about in my bio. But yeah, find me anywhere on socials at Breezy2345. You should be able to find and keep up with me.
Awesome. We're going to add your socials in the bio, and we're going to add all the links to those films as well. Robert, brother, I just want to thank you for taking time to speak to us today. This was fun. This is the funnest thing I'm going to do today. I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm a movie buff. I love movies. I got the utmost respect for filmmakers. I really believe that what you're doing matters. It's making a difference in the Black community and just, in our country as a whole. And so thank you for making incredible content. Thank you for showing representation on screen. And I wish you much success as you continue to do what you're doing.
I appreciate it. It was great to be here. I love talking about film, and I love talking about how we can empower the next generation to do what we want them to do, and help them go further, faster, higher. So I love that. I love talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. So thank you for your time, brother.